Hello all, 'tis I, the old geek, and I'm browsing through an old Dragon magazine again. This is number 30, from back in October 1979, volume 4, number 4, still costing just $2. Right, um, if you think back to the last two videos I've done on the Dragon, issue 28, really good. Issue 29, flattered to deceive. It seemed that they put in quite a lot of filler in it. It was a very big issue, but it didn't really appeal to me. So, can we get back on track? Also, the cover of number 28 was really good. The cover of number 29 was pretty bad. So, let's have a look at this cover. And we have, is he an old mage? Is he a seer? Is he a jeweler? Look at his nose. That's, is he a gnome? Could be a gnome, couldn't he, with a nose like that and a beard? You don't know. You don't know. There's books in the background. There's an ominous skull. There's a scroll there. Is that a jewel or a ring or a pendant he's looking at? Questionable choice in shoes. Bugs on the floor. Book on the floor as well. Is it a spell book? Who knows? Nice work, Elra here. I like images like this, which make you look at the picture and think, what is he? What's he doing? What's going on? It's bright. It's colourful. It stirs up the imagination. It's a good cover. And I like your name, Elra, here. I like your name. Alright, let's see what's in the contents. The game's the thing. Gen Con report. Where the orcs are. Miniature masterpiece. Good evening. Leomund's tiny hut. That'll be Mr. Lakofka. New setting for the adventure. Sorcerer's Scroll. Standardization versus playability, up on a soapbox. Tournament success in 6 steps. Giants in the Earth, 3 more heroes and heroines that I won't ever have heard of. Bazaar of the Bizarre, all those inventions. Dragon's Bestiary, Cursed. New improved Ninja. Boot Hill, Flat Top, Dragon's Augury. Humour. There's Wormy back, but we've also got Phineas. Meh. Lankmar, Armies of the Renaissance. Okay. It's not as big an issue as before by the looks of things. Page 44. So it's going to be a 46 or 48 page issue, probably. A little bit smaller than the last one, but as I've already said, the last issue was packed with filler. That's the way it goes. As I'm writing this, 11th of September, Dungeons and Dragons is getting the publicity that we used to dream about back when we were freezing in Gary's basement in the beginning. If we had our Druthers. What's a Druther? Don't know. Druthers? It would not have happened in such a fashion. By now, as you read this, I have the mystery surrounding the disappearance of James Egbert. Right. Yeah, this is related to the Satanic Panic. I remember this story. But I only remember what I picked up on it from the mid-80s. Because, of course, in 1979, October 1979, when this magazine was done, it was just before my 8th birthday. I wasn't aware of D&D. I didn't read magazines. I was interested in toy cars and dinosaurs and kicking a ball around with my friends, climbing trees, riding my bike. That's what I did when I was 7 or 8 years old. I knew nothing about this. I didn't discover D&D till I was just before my 12th birthday in autumn 1983. So I only saw what I heard after the fact, and I remember hearing all these stories and the speculation, and it turned out that a lot of that speculation was bollocks. There was a lawyer who was not the most, yeah, how should we put it? A bit biased. Not really doing what he should do. I remember that James Egbert was an unfortunate, troubled individual who at some point in his life had played D&D, but hadn't for a while before he disappeared. But yet, because at some point in his life he played D&D, they picked up on that, they ran with it, and all of a sudden D&D was evil. And there was another one as well, wasn't there? There was another one a bit later, and that mother, can't think of her name. I can picture her face. I've seen on YouTube, I've seen the footage of her talking absolute nonsense. And it always turns out it's something else to do with their kid. And they're trying to find excuses. And yet, a whole generation of gamers in the US, well, quite a lot, suffered as a result, having to keep their hobby secret, having their books burnt, because their parents believed the bullshit. Thankfully, over here, it never really took off. There were little rumours, and there were little sort of comments made. Have you heard this? We never paid any attention, and thankfully neither did our parents. So, all well and good, but to my friends on the other side of the Atlantic, I'm sorry it happened to you. Of course, we as older gamers are now seeing digs from the other side. People casting aspersions, making comments that are based on exaggerations. Yeah, a few of us may well have been dickheads when we were younger. Isn't that the same for any community? But you hear one story and it is conflated and exaggerated and expanded upon, and suddenly all of us become horrible. We're not. Come and play games with us. You'll find out. Well, with that said, we'll move on to the games of thing. And I used to think Gen Con stood for General Confusion. Talking about Gen Con 12, right up of Gen Con 12. And quite apt, because roughly 18 hours, not 18 hours, 42 hours, one day, 18 hours. What day is it today? No, it's Tuesday. 48 hours plus... We're supposed to be good at maths. Friday morning. So 24, 48 plus 18, 66 hours from now. Myself and a friend will be arriving at the Friday UK Games Expo. And then on the Saturday, a load of people from my Discord, fellow gaming nerds, will be meeting up for the first time, which will be wonderful. Looking forward to it. I do enjoy it. Do enjoy a good convention. I will, of course, be doing little videos and stuff, and I'll see who wants to appear on film and who doesn't, and I'll honour that. And we might have some little videos and little sort of diary bloggy things appearing on the channel over the course of the 2 days. So never know. Never know. I'll probably forget now, and it'll come to 5 o'clock on the Saturday. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot. But hey ho. Where the Orcs Are, a miniature marvel of monsters, mayhem, and miscellany. Lovely alliteration. This is this miniature thing, so he's making up these sort of dioramas with figures. It is a pity that the pictures are, I mean, obviously new, better quality digital pictures, you better see them a lot clearer. But it's nice to see them nice and colourful. They look very good. Very good. I don't have the patience. So scrolling down, it's quite a long one. Quite a long one. I would read the text to find out more about what's going on, because the pictures don't tell enough, unfortunately. They're too small, too hard to see. The cost, a lot of hours, a lot of figurines, and it took almost a year off and on of work and design to build the underground Orc Castle. Wow. Final price tag of $4,000. Oh, it was exhibited at Gen Con. Ah. Reportedly, at least one person was almost willing to shell out that much cash to take it home. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. There's always been those among our community that have had more money than sense. And with me having offended somebody. Let's move on. Um, Good evening. Are you wild about vampires? Here's something to sink your teeth into. Vampires have become a little bit stereotyped, but back in 1979, yes. This is Len Lakofka. This is his Leomund's Tiny Hut. Welcome to Leomund's Tiny Hut. His first one, I believe. Um, what is this? Right, he's talking about ways to use vampires, their abilities, um, ways to approach them. Good. This is the sort of article that gives you ideas. And I mean, Lakofka is one of those names from early D&D. I had a few encounters with him on Facebook, and he could be an obstinate old so-and-so. He was a proper old school nerd. But he had clearly had a love for the game, and he wrote several well-known adventures, several well-known modules. Secret of Bone Hill, a well-regarded sandbox. Assassin's Knot, an ambitious whodunit. Not perfect, could have done with a bit of editing, a few layout corrections, but still, with the right DM, a really interesting adventure. And then Deep Dwarven Delve, which I believe he didn't have as much input on as he would have liked. They took his notes and butchered them as far as I know, and he didn't like it all that much. But I've never read that one, so maybe I'll read it one day. But Lakofka certainly has his place in the hobby, and beyond Leomund's Tiny Hut and this. Origins, chaos with a happy ending. Conventions are chaos. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. An advert for S2, White Plume Mountain. This will be the old pastel cover from that artwork. White Plume Mountain. Now, when I ran a poll in Facebook, going back, it must be 5 or 6 years now, a poll of all the old school AD&D first edition modules to find out everyone's favourite, White Plume Mountain came second, and it wasn't beaten by much. Lost Caverns of Sojkant came first. And I believe both those two modules did so well because nobody disliked them. There were other modules that had got more fervent fan bases, but they polarised opinion. One good example of that being Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. It did very well, but it had enough people who didn't like it that would drag it down a little bit. White Plume Mountain was consistently up there with people's votes, and there's a reason for that. It's fun. Now, interesting story about Lawrence Schick becoming a writer at TSR. He submitted a work which incorporated a lot of his ideas, a lot of interesting puzzles, interesting little situations. And I believe TSR took it pretty much as is. He didn't expect that, and just put it out as White Plume Mountain. It's a funhouse with the emphasis on fun. It's got memorable puzzles, interesting fights. It's tough but not impossible. It's entertaining. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not meant to. It's quite simply a relatively short but fun-packed dungeon. Not to everybody's taste these days, especially these days. But going back to 1979, it epitomised D&D. It was a dungeon that people would not forget, and I don't think any module has done the funhouse better since. Ghost Tower of Inverness, good funhouse adventure, not as good as White Plume Mountain. And if anyone else knows of any better funhouses, let me know in the comments. Because White Plume Mountain deserves its place on a pedestal because it is just consistently fun. It's enjoyable. The Sorcerer's Scroll, new setting for the adventure. by Gary Gygax. So many things inspire ideas regarding D&D and/or AD&D that, despite my previous misgivings about taking on a column which would require not less than 8 articles per year, I find it difficult not to write 3 times that number. That doesn't surprise me, because when he puts pen to paper, when Gygax could explain something in 1 sentence, why not use 10 instead? But no, he has a point. But what is the point of this article? Let's see if he moves on. The publisher does not tell the editor what the specific content of a magazine should be. Okay. Because the publisher should not interfere with the role of the editor, I make an effort to avoid doing so. With rare exceptions, whatever I submit to the Dragon is given to Tim as material from a contributor. Seriously, though, can you imagine Tim Kask receiving an article written by Gygax and going, nope, not having that one? I can't. But Tim Kask is on YouTube. If Tim ever sees this video, let us know. Let us know. Did you ever refuse any articles written by Gygax? I think that would make for an interesting discussion. But why is this titled New Setting for the Adventure? Now on to important matters. Your D&D or AD&D campaign. Oh, he's talking about other settings for the campaign. Right, okay. Whether you can use the rules for Gunpowder Era, Napoleonic Times, Boot Hill, Gamma World. Yeah, I guess you can. I guess you can. I'm not one for blending genres. Certainly not all that much. I don't mind a bit of horror in my fantasy and vice versa. So as long as that's avoided, I don't mind using rules across different systems. But as people say, that annoying phrase, you do you. I really don't like that phrase. I really sorry. But yes, one does one. The new improved ninja character class. Okay. Is this a D&D or AD&D character class? Are we going to see? Are these... Right, this looks like an AD&D style weapon table with some interesting weapons on the side. It's nice to see that they don't all do massive damage. 9D, E, LD, LDE? I don't know what that means. Is that against enemy sizes? Or wielder sizes? Or I don't know. No, I'm not sure. Not sure. But I don't see any talk of pure AD&D mechanics here, like level progression and hit dice and that sort of stuff. Just lots of different powers. Smoke bombs, poisons, special equipment, healing skills. Is this one of those classes that's going to need sort of like 4,000 XP for level 2 for it to be remotely balanced? Who knows? Who knows? But it is. I think it's nice to see that it doesn't look to be system specific. So, yeah, okay, fine. These sort of things add flavour to the game, but as always, it's the DM's decision. Let the DM beware. Lankmar, the formative years of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. I guess this will be background of those two characters. I read a lot of the Fritz Leiber books when I was in my teens, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. I don't remember much about them. But hey ho. But they're inspirational characters in the swords and sorcery genre. And of course, they were in Deities and Demigods, and we had modules based on the Lanknar setting in AD&D. So, good, good. Boot Hill, sure, but what scale? It's about using figures. Do you have to use figures for Boot Hill? I've never played it. It's one of those games that the idea interests me because as a period of history, the Wild West is something that fascinates me. I'm British. Our 19th century here in Britain was very, very different to the 19th century in the US, when you had the frontiers, you had the railroads heading west, you had the expansion, the 49ers, the Civil War, all that sort of stuff. It was a tumultuous period, great change, great developments. Whereas in Britain, yes, we were also changing, but it was the Victorian era, a very, very class orientated era. A time when we sent children up chimneys and made them work 14, 16 hours a day just to get a loaf of bread. Whereas you also had the rich dining out on foie gras and all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of conflict, societal conflict there, but in a different way. And of course, it was an era of great literature. You had Dickens, the stories of Sherlock Holmes, the Brontes, Jane Austen, all that sort of stuff from that century. Not that I've read a lot of it. I've read a lot of Sherlock Holmes books. I'm not a fan of Dickens. I will admit that. I'm not a Dickens fan. But I think a lot of that literature reflects the class, and it helps preserve the image of the era as well. It's a century I'm interested in. It's amazing to see how different the societies became, and as a result, the Wild West is very alien to me. But I find it fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I've rambled enough. Flat top. A long game, but a strong game. No idea. Major air and sea battles in the Coral Sea Solomons area during 1942. Okay. That's an era I don't know anything about, I have to admit. Where the Victorian era and 19th century I find really interesting. I've read quite a lot about the European theatre of World War II, but I don't have much interest in beyond Europe. There was so much going on, but I can understand how North America will be interested in the Pacific theatre because they were very much involved. So, yep, it's an era I know, an era and an area that I know nothing about. I've talked far too long, something I know nothing about. Upon a soapbox, standardization versus playability. Okay, I'm guessing this is going to be the idea of having standard rules for everything versus rules that are malleable and adjustable in the moment. Standardization makes for ease of play generally. However, there are many areas in fantasy campaigns designing where standardization makes little or no contribution to playability. Yeah. If you over standardize everything, you get the type of game that I dislike. I've made it quite clear now, I'm not a Pathfinder / D&D 3rd edition fan at all. It feels like there's a rule for everything. I much prefer the versatility, the flexibility of old school D&D, and I'm leaning so much towards OSE now because it is just so well laid out, easy to follow. I ran a session last night of OSE for a group who play mostly 5th edition, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because the group picked up the old school ideals very quickly. They avoided multiple combats. They did a lot of exploration, a lot of planning. There was a lot of interaction between the characters, a lot of role play between the characters. I think they only had 2 fights, and those 2 fights lasted a total of maybe 15, 20 minutes in a 3-hour session. But isn't that how it's meant to be? For me, playing old school games, fast, bloody combat, and more interaction between the players rather than people waiting for their turn. Anyhow, totally enjoyed it. So if my players from last night watch this, thank you. I have already messaged them to say I enjoyed it. So, I notice here towards the bottom of the article, languages have been frequently glossed over in many campaigns because of the need to encourage, not discourage, interaction between the players and the non-player characters, which adds spice to play. The common tongue should pose a real danger of misinterpretation every time it is used to communicate with creatures of less than average intelligence. Brings me back to last night's session. We had a wonderful little bit where only one character in the party could speak Goblin, and they were talking to some goblins. And I rolled the goblins couldn't speak common. And one of the characters was saying, "Tell the goblins this." And that player was translating something different, saying something different to the goblins. The goblins were replying to that. And then he was, again, mistranslating it back to the players. And it was very, very funny. Very, very funny. It led to a fight. I won't go into any more detail on that because, yeah, some of the contents weren't very child friendly. But no, it led to a fight. It was highly amusing. Highly amusing for everyone who was there. We were laughing all the way through that. Sorcerer's Scroll. This is Gygax's thing. Origins report. Okay, these are from previous articles. There's not been too much of the chopping up in this one. It's the first bit of chopping up I've really seen. It's not too bad. It's better. Armies of the Renaissance. Warfare in Eastern Europe. Okay, that's for historical warfare fans. There's Soapbox, continued from page 21. Just a little bit. Tournament success in 6 steps. With the convention season fast approaching, many of you will be participating in the D&D tournaments at the major cons. Expect to grapple with 3 special problems not usually found in local D&D games. Party coordination, up to 8 other people you've never played with before. Scenario assimilation, figuring out the situation and what the designer wants you to do. And limited time, 4 hours or less. And then he gives suggestions. I would say, certainly with what has happened in the last 10, 15 years or so in terms of the hobby, there's a 4th thing you've really got to be aware of that the nerds of yore won't have even thought about. And that is... and I'm going to put it bluntly, social media. You've got to really be careful when you're running or playing in a game at a convention to... How do I put this in the right way? You've got to tread on the eggshells. You've got to be careful. You've got to be very careful. Because if somebody takes something the wrong way or doesn't like something about your session, it can go straight on social media nowadays. And a lot of things can spread very quickly. You've got to use a lot of common sense when approaching a convention game now regarding what topics you put in there, how you role play a character, how you interact with the other players. Much more so than you used to. And has it made for a better game? No, it doesn't. But I'd like to think that I and most of the people I game with would apply that common sense. So it's one of those things. Of course, when you're playing with your mates, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know them. You know what we can get away with and whatever. But yeah, you don't know who's going to sit at your table, who's going to sit beside you, who's going to be running the game. And there are some bad actors out there. Convention schedule. None in Britain. Out on a limb, Druidic World Series. This sounds interesting. Dear editor, something has been bothering me about the Druid class in Dungeons and Dragons. That is, I know of a couple of people in Chapel Hill. Don't know where that is. Is it North Carolina? Okay. NC, North Carolina. Who don't know each other, but they are both the Great Druid. I was thinking that maybe you could have a small advertisement in which all people who have Druid characters of 12th, 13th or 14th level could send in their Druids. The editors of the Dragon magazine could then play out the characters in a sort of Druidic World Series. The results could then be shown in a later issue of the magazine. And Dragon could also keep a duplicate of the winners for anyone who might wish to challenge of the Druids, one of the Druids. That way, Gary Gygax could be accurate in saying there are only 9 12th level Druids, 9 13th level Druids, and 1 Great Druid. Druid pit fighting as a sport. I approve. I approve. That would be fun. Yes. Yes, just put them all in a ring and have them creeping doom each other. A few less hippies in the world. Okay, so we've got abandonment of D&D, Bakshi's shoddy work, pleasure and pain. Why, Mr. Ward? Wand of Wonder. First-rate publication. Horse feathers. An excellent job. Interesting features. A few issues ago, Tim Kask put out basically a demand. Write into us if you want a letters page. And nerds have risen to the challenge. They've gone after that carrot. Good. Good. It's exactly what you want. Interaction. Giants in the Earth. Classic heroes from fiction and literature. Piers Anthony's Sol of All Weapons. Tanya Lee's Zorias. Clark Ashton Smith's Mild Dweb. 3 fictional individuals that I've never heard of. Sorry, I'm crap. Special Iron Golems. They've got intelligence. Oh, okay. Tell us your fantasies. You're on dangerous ground if you say tell us your fantasies to people I came with. One thing I will never say to my gaming groups is, tell me your fantasies. Because I will, yeah. The images I think they'll conjure up will prevent me from sleeping. We have reviews. Spellmaker. Only criticism of an excellent game. Okay, so right, good review. Black Hole. Black Hole is a fun game, plays very fast and forces players to plan at least one move ahead. Good. A positive review. 2 positive reviews. Bazaar of the Bizarre. All those inventions can liven up your life. What we got here? A problem that confronts most dungeon masters is that of the substantial effect most magic items have. Yeah. Every dungeon master has made this mistake of handing out something that's too powerful and it breaks the game, or has a major impact on the way the game plays. I mean, some people just roll with it. Some people just go with the tables and go, there you go. But if you look at these, look, we've got match of many lights, brush of colours, lasting pipe, spoon of stirring, spoon of eating, bottle of pleasant odours, stick of standing, socks of dryness, canteen of coolness, braces of cleanliness, hammer of nailing, returning penny, Potion of house cat control. I like these. I like this sort of thing a lot. You know when you think of the wizard in his tower using little cantrips to make his life easier. Cantrips are quite hard to work with in a gaming framework. I think I would prefer to have this sort of magic item. Like a broom of cleanliness. Broom, I've spilt my porridge. Please will you sweep it up for me? There's a good chap. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice little thematic magic items. And you can have fun with them. And you never know, they might come in useful. They might come in useful in a game. But they're going to be very situational. Augury, down Styphon. Oh, it's a review, is it? Okay. Says the game is very, very playable. It's musket and pike. Okay, so you're talking 17th century. English Civil War. The game's the thing. I've continued from page 2. So this is Tim Cask's in Gygax mode. Very verbose of you, Tim. Talking about Gen Con by looks of things. Is that page 2? Was it from page 2? Is it the Gen Con recap? Not sure. Because I see Rumbles. There's just Rumbles here. That's the editorial. That's Tim Cask. Yeah, he's signed at the bottom. Okay. The Return of Wormy. It looks like you got a Minotaur and a bear playing chess. Talking about chasing. I mean, you probably want to read this. Talking about chasing dwarves. Eating trolls. Trolls are poisonous. Will it kill you if you eat one? It'll sure make you god awful sick. Right, so the Minotaur's getting impatient because the bear won't take his move. The bear's thinking about food, and the Minotaur just keeps making the bear think more about food. There we go. Dragon's bestiary. It's pronounced bestiary. It's not bestiary. I see so many people say bestiary. No, bestiary. Bestiary. Cursed, created by Ed Greenwood. Cursed are unfortunate creatures who have been placed under a curse that will not let them die. No alignment in there. So I'm guessing it can be any alignment. High magic resistance. Wide range of hit dice. Okay, so they're very flexible in terms of their stats. But obviously they're quite flavourful. I like this sort of thing, yeah. Phineas Fingers, no thank you. Not a Phineas Fingers fan. And that concludes the issue. Okay, smaller issue than the last couple. But you know what? This is one of those situations where more does not always equal better. This is a much better issue than issue 29 was. I like the fact that you've got things in here that are flavourful and flexible. The Leomund's Tiny Hut issue about article about vampires. You've got the ninja. You've got quite a bit talking about historical bits and bobs. You've got that standardization versus playability article. You've got that talk about conventions. So I think that was a good. I think that was a good issue, and certainly there's a few things in there that I'm going to go back and have a read through because it appeals to me. Okay, it's not one for new mechanics, but then issue 29 was packed with potential new mechanics, but equally it felt like they were forced in. It was fluff. It was things they were getting out of the way, just sort of like, we've got this leftover article, we'll stuff it in here. That's what it felt like with issue 29. This isn't. This is much better. I like it. I like it. Dragon 30 gets a big thumbs up. Anyway, I've been the Old Geek. I hope you enjoyed this read through, and I shall see you probably next week with another one. We shall see. Before then, got a convention to go to. I will be hopefully uploading lots of bits and bobs from the convention. I'll be streaming on my usual Wednesday night stream, and hope you'll tune in. Cheers all.